She was left standing at the altar, but a millionaire appeared and offered her something no one else dared. "Why?" Valentina whispered, her eyes fixed on the engagement ring sparkling on her finger. Her wedding dress, a dream of lace and crystals, spread out around her on the marble steps of the church. She had been sitting there for nearly an hour, unable to face the pitying looks of the guests who were leaving in silence. The bouquet of white roses lay forgotten by her side. The man, sitting next to her, a stranger in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit, watched her with curiosity. "It looks like you've had a tough day," he commented, his voice deep and smooth. "The worst of my life," she replied, not bothering to hide her tears. "My fiancé just left me at the altar." 3 hours earlier, Valentina Ortiz, a 28-year-old pastry chef, had been in the church's sacristy, radiant with happiness. Her mother, Carmen, was adjusting the final details of her veil, while her cousin Luciana smiled excitedly. "This dress is worth every peso," Carmen said, stroking the lace. 3 generations saving for this moment. Valentina looked at herself in the mirror. The dress was perfect, just as she had dreamed. Eduardo and she had been together for 3 years, and today they would finally become husband and wife. "5 minutes, my love," her father Manuel poked his head through the door. "Eduardo is already at the altar." But when the moment arrived, Luciana came running into the sacristy, her eyes teary and a crumpled piece of paper in her hand. "Val, I don't know how to tell you this." Luciana's voice trembled. "Eduardo isn't coming." The paper contained just a few lines. "I can't do this. I'm sorry. I've been seeing someone else." Murmurs filled the church when Manuel announced that the wedding was canceled. Valentina fled down the central aisle, unable to bear the compassion in the guests' eyes, and sat on the outer steps. Now, as she stared at the ring that represented only lies, an elegant black car stopped in front of the church. The man who got out glanced briefly at Valentina before entering the building next door. 10 minutes later, he came back out and stopped when he saw her still sitting there. "Tough day?" he asked, approaching. "The worst," she repeated. The man sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm Rafael Mendoza, and you're the woman who was just left at the altar," she replied bitterly. Rafael studied her for a moment and then pulled a card from his pocket. "Call me tomorrow. I have a proposal that might interest you." As he walked away, Valentina looked at the card. Rafael Mendoza, CEO, Mendoza Enterprises. What she didn't know was that Rafael had recognized her from somewhere, the local bakery where he sometimes stopped for coffee. What he didn't tell her was that he had his own reasons for approaching her. Reasons tied to Eduardo and a business deal gone wrong many years ago. Inside the church, Valentina's family was still in shock. 3 generations saving for this wedding, Carmen lamented among the remaining relatives. "We'll be in debt for years." Valentina looked at the ring again, a modest diamond that now only represented betrayal, and slowly turned it on her finger. Tears fell silently, leaving small dark stains on the white silk of her dress. 3 days later, after much hesitation, Valentina found herself in front of the imposing Mendoza Enterprises building in downtown Guadalajara. Rafael's assistant led her to his corner office with panoramic views of the city. "Thank you for coming, Miss Ortiz," Rafael said, rising from behind his desk. At 36, he moved with the confidence of a self-made man. "I almost didn't," Valentina admitted. "What kind of proposal could you have for someone in my situation?" Rafael invited her to sit and offered her a coffee, which she declined with a nervous gesture. "I'll be direct," he said, leaning on the edge of his desk. "I need a companion for a series of important business events over the next 6 months. Someone elegant, intelligent, and unattached." Valentina's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with suspicion. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" she asked in disbelief. "Think of it as a business arrangement," Rafael clarified. "Nothing romantic. I need someone who knows how to handle social situations, and you need financial stability, after your recent setback." Rafael explained that in return, he would pay off all her wedding debts and provide a generous monthly allowance. Though initially offended, Valentina thought of her parents' financial sacrifice and the mountain of debts they now faced. Her small bakery didn't generate enough income to help them. Why me? There must be countless women who would jump at this opportunity, she questioned. Raphael hesitated before answering. You have an authenticity that's rare in my world. And frankly, after what happened, I doubt you're looking for romance, which makes you perfect for this arrangement. Valentina ran her hand through her hair, thoughtful. I know nothing about high society events. I'm a pastry chef, not a socialite. That's exactly why, he replied. I'm not looking for a woman from my circle. I need someone real, someone not interested in my money or tying themselves to me. And what do you get out of this besides a companion? Raphael straightened and walked to the window. It's a skill. My competitors and partners see me as a playboy, which complicates my current business dealings, especially with very traditional Japanese investors. Valentina recalled the wedding bills that had arrived that morning. The canceled banquet, the flowers, the photographer, all of which had to be paid despite the cancellation. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course, Raphael proposed. How about this? Come with me to an event this Friday, a test, then decide if you want to continue. Valentina reluctantly agreed to the test. At home, Luciana was waiting anxiously. What did that man want? She asked as soon as Valentina walked in. He offered me a job as his fake girlfriend, she replied, collapsing onto the sofa. You're kidding, right? Luciana sat beside her. And what did you tell him? That I'll do a test this Friday. There's an event. Val, you don't know him. What if he's dangerous? He's a well-known businessman, not a criminal, Valentina replied, showing her a phone article about Rafael Mendoza, the entrepreneur who had revolutionized Mexico's tech sector. What Valentina didn't know was that Rafael's company was in the middle of negotiations for an international merger, and his rival Javier Torres had been spreading rumors about Rafael's playboy lifestyle to undermine his credibility with conservative Japanese investors. Rafael needed to project stability and commitment, and Valentina was key to his plan. Meanwhile, Luciana, worried about her cousin's sudden connection to one of Mexico's richest men, began investigating Rafael's background, uncovering a mysterious link between him and Eduardo that would change everything. That night, Valentina looked at her dress hanging in the closet. It was one of the few she owned suitable for a formal event, originally bought for her wedding rehearsal dinner. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her mother entered the room. My daughter, are you sure about this? It seems very strange. Mom, it could save us a lot of trouble. If I accept, I could pay off all the wedding debts. Carmen sighed and sat beside her daughter. Money isn't everything, Valentina. Your dignity is worth more. And what dignity do I have left after Eduardo left me at the altar in front of everyone? Her eyes filled with tears. At least this way, I can make something good out of this disaster. The ballroom of the Imperial Hotel shimmered with golden lights and exquisite floral arrangements. Valentina tightly gripped Raphael's arm as they entered, feeling like an imposter in her navy blue dress. Relax, he whispered. Half these people are pretending something too. Valentina tried to smile, but her nervousness was evident. She had never been to an event like this, surrounded by such wealthy and powerful people. What am I supposed to say when they ask how we met? She murmured. Raphael leaned in discreetly. We met at your bakery 3 months ago. I was captivated by your pastries and by you. Simple, close to the truth, and easy to remember. The first test came when an older man with a bow tie approached. Mendoza, finally showing up with someone. Won't you introduce us? Of course, Pedro. This is Valentina Ortiz. Valentina, this is Pedro Alarcón, my mentor and president of the country's most important bank. A pleasure to meet you, Valentina said, surprised by how naturally the words came out. And how did you two meet? Pedro asked with a sly smile. At my bakery, Valentina replied before Raphael could intervene. He said he came for the pastries, but I suspected it was for something else. Pedro let out a hearty laugh. I like this girl, Raphael. Keep her, please. She's a breath of fresh air. As the night progressed, Valentina was surprised at how easy it was to talk to the guests. Her authenticity won over even the most aloof, and Raphael watched her, amazed. You're a natural at this, he commented during a moment alone on the terrace. At pretending? She asked, her smile not reaching her eyes. At connecting with people, he clarified. That's not pretend. That's who you are. Over the next 3 months, Valentina accompanied Raphael to charity galas, business dinners, and social events. At first, she felt stiff and uncomfortable, but gradually she began to enjoy the role, even as she reminded herself it was only a pretense. Raphael was surprised to discover quickly that Valentina won over his business associates with her genuine warmth and intelligence. The Japanese investors were particularly charmed by her knowledge of traditional pastries and her efforts to learn basic Japanese phrases. After a particularly successful charity auction, where Valentina's spontaneous offer to create a personalized, gourmet experience raised substantial funds, Raphael found himself looking at her with new eyes. "You're incredible," he told her as they shared a quiet moment on the venue's terrace. "You just raised more money for that foundation than any of the magnates here." Valentina blushed. "I just offered what I know how to do." "Exactly. You're authentic, and that's what people value." As they spent more time together, Valentina discovered that behind Raphael's controlled exterior was a man who had built himself from nothing after losing his parents in an accident. At 17, he had raised his younger sister Isabella, now a successful doctor living in Barcelona. Raphael, in turn, was moved by Valentina's resilience and dedication to her small bakery, which she kept running despite her hectic social schedule. He began inventing excuses to extend their time together. Business breakfasts, weekend events, requiring stays at luxury hotels, always in separate rooms, and impromptu meetings that somehow always involved tasting her latest pastry creations. Neither admitted how real their feelings were becoming. One night, as they returned from a dinner, Raphael's driver took a detour. "Where are we going?" Valentina asked. "I want to show you something," Raphael replied. The car stopped, in front of an old building in the historic center. Raphael led her inside and turned on the lights, revealing a large, empty space. "What is this place?" Valentina asked, confused. "It could be your next bakery," he replied. "The location is perfect, and the space can be completely remodeled." Valentina stared at him, speechless. "Raphael, I can't accept something like this. Our agreement doesn't include—" "It's not part of the agreement," he interrupted. "It's an investment I want to make. I've tasted your pastries, Valentina. You deserve a place where your talent can shine." His gaze was intense, and for a moment, Valentina felt something shift between them. They no longer seemed like actors in a play, but two people genuinely connecting. Then came the Torres Corporation Gala, where they encountered Eduardo for the first time since the wedding that never was. He was accompanied by Gabriela, the woman he had left Valentina for, who turned out to be Javier Torres's daughter. Valentina stammered. Eduardo was clearly shocked to see her on Rafael Mendoza's arm. "You look different," he said. Before she could respond, Rafael's arm tightened around her waist. "Eduardo, right? I believe you know my partner, Valentina." The tension was palpable, as Eduardo looked incredulously at Valentina with Rafael Mendoza, one of Mexico's most powerful businessmen. "You two are together?" he asked, his gaze shifting between them. "Yes, for 3 months now," Valentina replied with a calm she didn't know she possessed. Javier Torres approached, a glass of champagne in hand. "Mendoza, I finally meet the famous Valentina. Eduardo has told me a lot about his ex. Quite a step up you've made, my dear." Torres's condescending tone made Valentina clench her jaw. Rafael, sensing her tension, intervened. "Torres, always so charming. How's that project in Monterrey going? I've heard investors are pulling their support." Torres's smile faltered for a moment. "Rumors, just rumors. Everything's going perfectly." As the night went on, Valentina noticed Eduardo watching her from across the room. During the toast, she and Rafael played the role of an enamored couple perfectly, with small gestures of affection that seemed so natural that even Valentina began to blur the line between reality and performance. "You're doing great," Rafael whispered, brushing her cheek with his lips in what looked like an affectionate gesture to onlookers. "So are you," she replied, surprised by the shiver that ran down her spine. While Rafael spoke with some businessmen, Valentina headed to the bathroom. On her way out, she came face to face with Eduardo in a deserted hallway. "So, you're dating Mendoza now," he said, his tone accusatory. How long did you wait after we ended? Valentina straightened, facing him. After what, Eduardo? After you left me at the altar? Or after I found out you were cheating on me with Gabriela? It's not what you think, Eduardo said, glancing around nervously. I can't believe you're with Mendoza. Do you know who he really is? I know he's never lied to me, Valentina replied, though a seed of doubt planted itself in her mind. Back at the party, Valentina couldn't shake Eduardo's words. What had he meant? Later, while waiting for their car, she overheard a conversation between Eduardo and Torres on the adjacent terrace. Do you think she knows the truth? Torres asked. I doubt it, Eduardo replied. Mendoza's been planning this for years, waiting for the perfect moment to get revenge for what happened. What better way than to take Valentina from me? Though technically, you left her first, Torres mocked. But using your enemy's ex for revenge? That Mendoza is colder than I thought. Valentina's world crumbled for the second time. It had all been an elaborate revenge. Raphael was only using her. With her heart pounding, she waited until they were in the car before confronting him. Is it true? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Did you seek me out specifically because I'm Eduardo's ex? Raphael tensed visibly. Valentina, answer me. Is this all a revenge plot against Eduardo? Raphael's silence was all the confirmation she needed. I heard everything, Raphael. Eduardo said you've been planning this for years, waiting to get back at him for something that happened between you. What did he do to you? Raphael looked out the window, his face an impenetrable mask. Eduardo forged documents years ago, causing me to invest in a fraudulent company. The scandal nearly destroyed my reputation and cost me my first company. He escaped legal consequences thanks to his family connections, while I had to rebuild everything from scratch. And I'm just a pawn in your chess game? Tears streamed down Valentina's cheeks. Was anything real, or was I just another business transaction? A way to get back at Eduardo? Raphael's silence was all the confirmation she needed. With trembling hands, Valentina removed the sapphire bracelet he had given her for their 3-month anniversary and placed it on the seat between them. The agreement is over, she said quietly, before asking the driver to stop so she could get out. As she walked away in the rainy night, Raphael realized he had made a terrible mistake. What had started as revenge had turned into something he never expected: true love. But now it might be too late. At home, Luciana found Valentina soaked and with her makeup running. What happened? She asked, alarmed. It was all a lie, Valentina sobbed. Raphael was only using me to get revenge on Eduardo for a business deal that went wrong years ago. He never cared about me. Luciana hugged her cousin, but something in her expression revealed she knew more than she was letting on. Did you know? Valentina asked, pulling away. Is that why you've been investigating Raphael? I found connections, but I wasn't sure, Luciana admitted. Val, there's more to this story than it seems. In the weeks following her breakup with Raphael, Valentina threw herself into her work. She extended her bakery's hours and introduced new pastry classes that quickly became popular. Valentina, you need to rest, her father told her, seeing her kneading dough at 5 a.m. You've been working non-stop. Work keeps me busy, she replied without looking up. Besides, we need the money. Her small bakery, Dulce Victoria, had become her refuge. Every cake, every loaf of bread she baked was a form of therapy, a way to avoid thinking about Raphael and the betrayal she felt. Meanwhile, Raphael had successfully closed the merger with the Japanese investors but found no joy in his professional triumph. His sister, Isabella, visiting from Barcelona, confronted him about his melancholy. You're in love with her, she stated, not as a question but as a fact. It doesn't matter, Raphael replied, gazing at the city from his office. She'll never forgive me. Did you try explaining? Did you tell her the whole story about Eduardo? Raphael hadn't. He never told Valentina how Eduardo had forged documents years ago, causing Raphael to invest in a fraudulent company. The scandal had nearly destroyed Raphael's reputation and cost him his first company. Eduardo escaped legal consequences thanks to his family connections, while Raphael had to rebuild from scratch. She deserves better than a man who used her for revenge, Raphael said softly. Isabella shook her head in frustration. You're both so stubborn. Did it ever occur to you that maybe this wasn't about revenge? Maybe meeting her was the universe's way of bringing something good out of something terrible. Meanwhile, Luciana had finally pieced together all the connections between Raphael and Eduardo. She visited Valentina at the bakery after closing. There's something you need to know, she said, placing a folder on the counter. Eduardo didn't just hurt you. He's hurt a lot of people, including Raphael. Valentina learned the full story of Eduardo's betrayal and how Raphael had spent years rebuilding his reputation and fortune. She also discovered something else. Raphael had anonymously funded the expansion of her bakery 6 months before they met, after tasting her pastries and hearing about her struggles from one of his employees. He knew who I was from the beginning, Valentina said, stunned. But why would he help me before we met? Maybe revenge wasn't his only motivation, Luciana suggested gently. Or maybe it was part of a bigger plan, Valentina replied, still hurt. I don't know what to believe anymore. That afternoon, while cleaning the kitchen, Valentina received an elegant envelope. It was an invitation to participate in a prestigious international pastry competition in Madrid, with the winner receiving funding to open a restaurant in the city of their choice. You should go, Luciana said when Valentina showed her the invitation. It's the perfect opportunity to start fresh and leave everything here behind. The bakery, Mom and Dad, your talent deserves to be recognized, Val. Besides, I can manage the bakery while you're gone. With Luciana's encouragement, Valentina submitted her application and was selected as a finalist. The competition would take place the same week Raphael's company was inaugurating its new European headquarters in Madrid. Their paths were about to cross again, thousands of miles from home. In his office, Raphael looked at the same invitation on his desk. His assistant had just informed him that Valentina had been selected as a finalist. The inauguration is the same weekend, his assistant said. Do you want us to change the dates? Raphael shook his head. No, we'll proceed as planned. That night, Raphael spent hours looking at photos of him and Valentina from the events they had attended together. In every image, her smile seemed genuine. Or had that been part of the act too? As she packed for Madrid, Valentina found the business card Raphael had given her that day on the church steps. She had kept it in a small box along with other painful memories. The invitation to her cancelled wedding, Eduardo's engagement ring, 2 betrayals, 2 men who had used her for their own selfish reasons. Or was there more to what Luciana was hinting at? Could there have been something real between her and Raphael, despite how it all began? Madrid would be a fresh start, away from Eduardo, away from Raphael, away from painful memories, a chance to prove her worth, not as the abandoned bride or a millionaire's fake companion, but as Valentina Ortiz, the pastry chef with a special gift for sweetening people's lives. Madrid was wrapped in autumnal colors when Valentina arrived for the pastry competition. The stress of preparation left her little time to think about the possibility of running into Raphael, though her heart raced every time she saw a tall man in a business suit. The competition brought together the world's best pastry chefs, showcasing their most innovative creations. For the final round, contestants had to create a dessert that told their personal story. Valentina designed an elegant 3-tiered creation. The base represented her family's traditional recipes. The middle symbolized her heartbreak with dark chocolate and brittle caramel, and the top expressed hope and new beginnings with delicate, sponge sugar and edible flowers. Unbeknownst to her, Raphael was in the audience. His sister, Isabella, who had kept in touch with Luciana, had informed him of Valentina's participation. Despite his fear of rejection, he couldn't stay away. The morning of the final, Valentina woke early, mentally rehearsing every step of her creation. Her hands trembled slightly as she dressed, not just because of the competition. Something about Madrid kept reminding her of Raphael, perhaps because she knew he was in the city too. Focus, Valentina, she told herself in front of the mirror. This is your chance. The auditorium was packed when the competition began. Contestants worked at separate stations, visible to the audience watching their every move. Valentina immersed herself in her work, forgetting everything else as her hands danced among the ingredients with precision and passion. From his seat, Raphael watched, mesmerized. He had never seen her work like this, completely in her element. In her eyes, he could see the same determination that had captivated him from the start. When Valentina was announced as the winner, the audience erupted in applause. During her acceptance speech, she spoke about resilience and finding sweetness even after bitterness. Sometimes, what seems like an ending is really just the beginning of something more beautiful than we could have imagined, she said, her voice trembling slightly. At the reception afterward, as Valentina spoke with potential investors, a familiar voice behind her said, "Your dessert was extraordinary. It told a story that felt strangely familiar." She turned to find Raphael, more casual than she had ever seen him, in a simple shirt without a tie. "Raphael," she whispered, her prepared speech forgotten. "I came to apologize," he said, "and to tell you the truth, the whole truth." He led her to a quiet corner, where he explained everything. How he had tasted her pastries months before they met. How learning of her connection to Eduardo had initially sparked his interest, but how his motivations changed the moment he truly met her. "I thought I was using our agreement to get revenge on Eduardo, but the truth is, I was using it to get closer to you," he admitted. "I fell in love with you, Valentina. Not as part of any plan, and certainly not as a business deal." "Why didn't you tell me this when I confronted you?" she asked. "Because when you looked at me that night, I saw the same disappointment I've seen in everyone who's ever claimed to care about me. I thought I'd lost you forever," he explained. "But Isabella made me realize I had to at least try to tell you the truth, even if you never forgave me." Just as Valentina was about to respond, Eduardo and Gabriela appeared. "Congratulations, Valentina," Eduardo said softly. "I always knew you'd do something great. Perhaps we could discuss providing investment for your new restaurant. My father-in-law is quite interested." Before she could reply, Raphael stepped forward. "I think Valentina already has all the support she needs." Eduardo smirked. "Still together, I see. Tell me, Valentina, did he ever tell you how he's been planning this revenge for years? Tracking my career, waiting for the perfect moment to take something from me, like I supposedly took from him?" Valentina looked at Raphael, then back at Eduardo. "He told me everything, including how you forged documents and nearly destroyed his company." Eduardo's face paled. "The difference between you two," Valentina continued, "is that when Raphael made a mistake, he owned up to it and apologized. You're still making excuses." She turned to Raphael. "And yes, I forgive you, because what started as something fake became the most real thing I've ever known." As Eduardo and Gabriela walked away, Raphael pulled out a small box. "This isn't a ring," he said quickly. "Not yet. It's a key to a storefront I bought in Barcelona, the perfect location for the first branch of Valentina's." Valentina opened the box and found a delicate golden key. "I don't need grand gestures," she said softly. "I just need honesty. And maybe a partner who believes in me as much as I've learned to believe in myself. That I can promise," Raphael said, taking her hand. And there, amid the bustle of the reception, with the scent of sugar and chocolate still in the air, they found a new beginning. One built not on revenge or pretense, but on the truth they had both been seeking. 5 years had passed since that afternoon in Madrid, where Valentina and Raphael gave each other a second chance. Time had flown by like a sigh, bringing changes neither could have imagined that day on the church steps. The Valentina's restaurant chain now spanned Spain and Mexico, with 8 locations combining artisanal pastry with a gourmet concept that had revolutionized the culinary scene. The first had opened in Barcelona, followed quickly by another in Guadalajara, allowing Valentina to maintain her Mexican roots while expanding her horizons. It was a summer afternoon when the family gathered in the garden of their Barcelona home to celebrate their 3rd wedding anniversary. Luciana, now the general manager of all Mexican locations, had flown in from Guadalajara with her husband Miguel, a friend of Raphael's whom she met during the opening of the 2nd location. "Who would have thought we'd end up as one big business family?" Luciana joked as she served lemonade. Valentina smiled, discreetly touching her belly. She had a surprise to share today. Valentina's parents were chatting animatedly with Isabella and her Catalan husband. Though they missed their daughter, they visited regularly and were proud of the empire she had built. Raphael approached from behind and hugged Valentina. "Everything okay, my love? You've been mysterious all day." "Perfectly," she replied, turning to kiss him. "I'm just remembering how much has changed in 5 years." The contrast with Eduardo couldn't be starker. According to rumors, his business ventures with Torres had failed spectacularly after several investors discovered irregularities in their financial documents. The last they heard, he was trying to rebuild his reputation in the United States, far from the Mexican business circles that now shunned him. Meanwhile, Valentina and Rafael's partnership flourished, both personally and professionally. He brought his strategic vision and business acumen, while she contributed her creativity and authenticity. Together, they were an unstoppable team. "I have an announcement to make," Valentina said when everyone was gathered for the toast. All eyes turned to her expectantly. "In 6 months, our family will grow," she announced with a radiant smile. "We're expecting a baby." The news was met with hugs, tears of joy, and immediate plans for the future baby. Amid the celebration, Rafael took Valentina's hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden. "Every day, I wonder how I got so lucky," he whispered against her hair. "Luck? I'd call it fate," she replied. "Who would have thought the saddest day of my life would lead me to the love of my life?" A month later, Rafael surprised Valentina with another key, this time to the church in Guadalajara where they had met, which he had bought and renovated to turn into the flagship Valentina's restaurant. "Where one door closed, many others opened," Rafael said as they unveiled the inauguration plaque. The steps where Valentina had once cried in her wedding dress now led to an elegant hall where weddings, baptisms, and anniversaries were celebrated, always accompanied by the exquisite pastries that had made Valentina famous. On the night of the inauguration, as guests enjoyed the banquet, Rafael and Valentina slipped away to the outer steps, sitting in the same spot where they had met. 5 years, Valentina murmured, leaning against Rafael's shoulder. "From tragedy to complete happiness. Anyone who saw us then wouldn't believe it," he replied, kissing her forehead. "The abandoned bride and the vengeful businessman. And now we're a family," she added, guiding Rafael's hand to her belly where their child was growing. As they gazed at the stars over Guadalajara, Valentina reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. Her greatest pain had led her to her greatest happiness. Eduardo, who had tried to destroy her, had unwittingly opened the door to a life she never could have imagined. The recipe for happiness, Valentina thought, wasn't in avoiding bitter moments, but in knowing how to transform them into something sweet, just like in pastry. Sometimes, the most unexpected ingredients created the most memorable flavors. And so, on the same steps where she had once cried in her wedding dress, Valentina Ortiz de Mendoza found the peace that comes from knowing that sometimes endings are just the beginning of something far more beautiful.